Welcome in to an emergency edition of the Illini Inquirer podcast. It is Jeremy Werner, Joey Wagner. We're at the Graduate Hotel in Lincoln, Nebraska. We had to do this spur of the moment because we're sitting at lunch in Lincoln, Nebraska, when we get the tweet alert from Matt Zenit, CBS Sports, 24/7 Sports, that Aaron Henry is leaving the Illinois program, the defensive coordinator, after 3 years of play calling at Illinois, is expected to take the Notre Dame job as the co-defensive coordinator and secondaries coach. That ends 5 seasons at Illinois for Aaron Henry. And Joey, I don't think it's too unexpected that Illinois and Aaron Henry are parting ways, but the timing of it is really, really interesting. So we will dive into what this means for Illinois, some potential replacements that come off the top of our head. But huge news for the Illinois football program, the third assistant to leave following Thad Ward and Robbie Disher. But this is obviously the biggest one, as this is the first coordinator change for Bret Bielema since Ryan Walters left after the 2022 season and Aaron Henry was promoted. So, Joey, initial reaction, what was it?
Some resolution on the biggest question of the offseason, right? From a staff standpoint, that's all anyone really wanted to talk about. There just a question about Aaron Henry and what this defense was going to be long-term. It's just solid at times, defenses from Aaron Henry, and then other times it's just like, what is going on here? Washington, Wisconsin, and then you follow that up with Tennessee. So it's really a polarizing couple months, I guess, and trying to figure out what they were going to do on the defensive side of the ball. And now Bret Bielema's got to replace a coordinator. And however, we'll get into maybe how we think this could have gone down. We just trying to piece this together over a cheesesteak earlier, but I assume this separation was a challenge for both of them, right? I mean, those two are very close together. Bret recruited him when he was a football player in Florida. He played for him at Wisconsin. I can't imagine this was the easiest separation of all time, but it also felt like, maybe there needs to be a new voice on that side of the ball, and we'll see where it goes from here. But not surprising, the timing of it was interesting. But here's the thing with that, before we pass it on to you. At what point are we done being surprised by the timing of this, right? Like, this is really when it's always been, just because everybody else operates in a different window. This has really been Bret Bielema's window to have some of these coaching changes. So the timing shouldn't be that big of a surprise, but still a little bit it is.
Yeah, well, the biggest thing now is the calendar, right? Like, you have the transfer portal that opens January 2nd through the 16th. You kind of want to get that stuff done before you make any changes, because that could really impact all of those things. You have signing day in early December, right? So you kind of want to get through those things. But did you miss on some candidates, right? And that's what we think of with all of this. So we'll break all that down. But, I mean, we can read into this. We don't know this for sure. We'll talk to Bret Bielema. But, guys, he's not taking a defensive coordinator job at Notre Dame. He's not the play caller. Chris Ash is the play caller at Notre Dame. And Chris Ash has a history with Aaron Henry from their Wisconsin days, has a history with Bret Bielema, obviously. So this reads as a soft demotion, soft firing, right? So the way we can read that is Aaron Henry was looking for other jobs and accepted another job that isn't a play caller. So this certainly feels like Bret Bielema is deciding to move on and is looking elsewhere to change it. And it makes sense. I mean, we've all seen what the last 3 years are. And as I reflect on Aaron Henry's tenure here, it's really a mixed legacy to me, because he was such a big part of the individual development that helped Illinois rise, right? In his first 2 years as a position coach, I think everyone would tell you he's a very good position coach, whether it was cornerbacks with, Devin Witherspoon and Quan Martin was a little bit a part of that. Xavier Scott at corner, like finding him, developing him. And the last few years at safety with Miles Scott, Matthew Bailey, Xavier Scott at the nickel. So I think he did a really good job of that. And Aaron Henry was a part of 19 wins over the last 2 years. But, Joe, it also felt like he was a reason Illinois underachieved greatly in 2023. That should not have been a 5-win team. There was too much talent for that team to miss a bowl game, and a lot of it was due to the defense. And then potentially this year, right, underachieving with what happened at Washington, what happened at Wisconsin, and just overall this season not being as good of a defense or dominant as a defense as Aaron Henry said. It just wasn't good enough for what Bret Bielema wants to be. The defense led by Aaron Henry was not good enough to be a Big Ten title contender, to be a college football playoff contender. So that's why I would imagine Bret Bielema is looking elsewhere.
Yeah, and we should also point out that Matt Zenit, our guy at CBS Sports, who broke the news, also reported that Aaron interviewed for jobs with the NFL teams, including the Jaguars. And again, you just start to put the pieces together here, right? And you're a sitting defensive coordinator in the Big Ten, and you're interviewing for a couple different jobs. You go somewhere to a non-play calling position. I think, we'll obviously talk to Bret Bielema. There seems to be some, conclusions that we can draw from that. But yeah, I'm with you. I do think that the legacy here of Aaron Henry is maybe a little skewed because it wasn't like it was a total fire every single game on the defensive side of the ball. And he did find talent in the secondary, and he did develop talent in the secondary. And his work as a DB's coach in the early part of Bret Bielema's tenure helped this program rise. He had moments that helped this program contain Lenore Sellers in the Citrus Bowl. He helped, contain that Tennessee offense in the Music City Bowl. So it wasn't just a total mess every which way you looked. And I do think sometimes when seasons go in the way that they do, and it's still a very good season, but you look at moments in time. We mentioned Washington, we mentioned Wisconsin, then you can say, okay, this is frustrating. And you see that the growth of the program at Illinois and where this program wants to go and kind of that tier in the Big Ten that it is. And I think at this point you really want to make sure you're established in that tier and see if you can fight up a little bit within it. And I think, it's fair to say that you needed more on the defensive side of the ball. And if that's a new voice, I think also, you got to add more talent too. We've seen some of that in the transfer portal, but it did feel a little bit like, okay, this feels like, I don't want to say it feels like it was time, but if the timing after this season in particular makes sense to me, right? Because you just had some of those lower moments.
Yeah. So not expecting Illinois to announce anything until Notre Dame officially announces anything with all of this. But clearly, Aaron's going to be a DB's coach, not a defensive coordinator. So Bret Bielema looking for a new play caller here at Illinois. And, I mean, the biggest thing that Aaron Henry held him back was third downs. We've mentioned it over and over again. Like 45 to 48% all 3 years that he was here at Illinois. And allowing – listen, the Big Ten had some great offenses early in the season. But still, like allowing almost 30 points a game in conference play, it's not good enough for the talent that Illinois had. And I know they had some injuries this year, but you just wanted to do better. And if you aspire to be better as a program, it makes sense. And Joey, this is not easy for Bret Bielema, right? Like he had grand visions for what Aaron Henry would be. And I think he knew there was going to be some growing pains, but I think he hoped in the long term that Aaron Henry would grow into that role, get better, and be a superstar defensive coordinator, superstar recruiter. He didn't want to lose Aaron to Ryan Walters because it was between Aaron and Kevin Kane. Ryan was going to steal one of them, and he took Kevin Kane. Didn't work out there for them for various reasons, but ultimately this promotion of Aaron Henry did not work out. So that's not a decision Bret takes lightly because he's said it over and over again. I've known him since he was 16 years old, recruited him out of Immokalee. He's changed Aaron Henry's life for the better. Aaron Henry has made an impact on Bret Bielema, obviously as a player and now as a coach. So this is not a decision he took lightly, but it does show that Bret Bielema is willing to make these kind of hard decisions, as he did with Tony Peterson his first year.
Yeah, and again, like we do think there was a decision made. At least that's our speculation on his side of things. And you come out of that, Aaron Henry lands a pretty good job too, right? Like this felt like it kind of worked on both ends. And I do think, if people are listening to this and hear like, well, Aaron accepted, yes, he did, but I think we do think there are layers to that. But yeah, I don't think this was easy at all. And you're right, like Bret Bielema put a lot in Aaron Henry and trust in Aaron Henry as a defensive coordinator. When Ryan left, and he was really vocally, I knew I wanted it to be him leading this defense. I wanted it to be his voice, I think was the quote he used.
And it was a gamble. It was a gamble. He never called plays before.
That's right. And again, it didn't work out in the big picture, but the numbers, we talk about the numbers this year.
Yeah. And
just kind of how we go through that. Because if you look at those numbers as a whole this season, run of the mill Big Ten, kind of somewhere in that, let's say, lower middle. I think that's about the fair way to put the Illinois defense. But I think it was also bolstered by the Rutgers, the Maryland, the Northwestern, that stretch down at the end. Wisconsin should have been in that conversation. But and that's kind of where I think you maybe struggle a little bit with looking at this is the numbers, just flat raw data doesn't look all that bad. The eye test at times is what really was bothersome to see kind of just some of the lack of pressure, the lack of aggression, this and that. And I understand you've got to really kind of band-aid some deficiencies with whether it be injuries or just talent. I think Aaron did a decent job of that at times, but there were times it's like, just go get the quarterback, like go.
Well,
go
and
pressure.
The one thing I've said over and over again, the one thing I loved about Ryan Walters, it felt like they were the side of the ball that dictated the game, right? Like they were going to play on their terms. And whether they got beat because they were too aggressive, they were going to be aggressive. Right now, he had the benefit of some great talent that Lovie Smith left behind, but he, Aaron, Bret developed a lot out of it. But I think Ryan's scheme really unleashed Kirby Joseph and Devin Witherspoon and all those
Sidney Brown.
Martin, Sidney Brown. Sidney Brown will tell you Ryan Walters changed his life. Like Aaron, it just felt like they were sitting back. And we got to say, this is Bret Bielema's defense too, right? And we'll get into this, but like Bret signed off on the way they played, but certainly I just felt like on those third downs, like what do you want to be? Like you can sit back and, drop into coverage, but if you're not executing it, at some point you got to change something. I just never felt like Aaron Henry really established an identity outside of trying to contain and bend but don't break, relying on some turnovers. And when those turnovers don't come, though, Joey, you don't have an identity. You're just giving up first down after first down after first down, and ultimately led to way too many points here the last couple of years. So that was the difference. Like you felt it with Ryan Walters, his defense, even his first year where it was kind of up and down. They dictated things, right? It felt like they were dictating with the play on the field, while Aaron Henry, it never really felt like that during his tenure.
No, it didn't. Not at all. I'm trying to even think of some of the better games, but they did a lot of containing, right? Like the South Carolina game was you contained.
Duke,
they got a lot of takeaways.
Turnovers.
They were probably gifted a couple of those. Right? Mensa made some throws. They're like, what are you? And some of the fumbles. But yeah, I mean, you don't want to take that away. That was a big moment for them. But yeah, I just didn't feel like I knew what the identity was other than hope they make a mistake and don't hit big plays on this defense. I think that can get you through, a lot of time, but you also need to be able to ratchet it up and you need to be able to go make one of those plays. So yeah, if you're Notre Dame, you got a defensive backs coach who's developed the heck out of defensive backs.
Great hire.
He's with
I love Aaron Henry as a defensive backs coach. Phenomenal defensive backs coach.
Yeah, and his familiarity with Chris Ash is certainly meaningful. Notre Dame's defensive coordinator, like that fit makes sense to me. And I think that's good for Aaron. I think it could be good for Illinois. Well, this is a big hire for Bret Bielema. This is a really, really significant hire because you'll learn a little bit about where he wants this defense to go, or maybe an identity of what he wants on this defense. And I think he's going to be able to pull some names. I mean, he's Bret Bielema. He's got a lot of connections. They're in the Big Ten. They've got money. Like I would imagine he's going to have some opportunity to bring in some big fish and see what he can do.
All right, when we come back from a quick break, let's break down some of the potential replacements. We're live on our YouTube channel. We'll be here for about 15, 20 more minutes. We got to get ready for a top 10 matchup here in Lincoln, Nebraska. But if you have any super chats, send those in. We'll react to those as well. But let's hear from one of our great sponsors first.
The one thing about a lot of deodorants, guys, is it just covers up the smell for just a portion of the day. Well, Mando sent me their starter pack of products, and I can tell you, you can have confidence when using Mando products. They're going to smell good the entire day and not have to constantly reapply. And Mando is a whole body deodorant. It's safe to use everywhere on your body, from your head to your toes, because it is created by a doctor who saw firsthand how normal BO is being misdiagnosed and mistreated. And Mando is clinically proven to block odor all day and control odor for up to 72 hours. I like their solid deodorant stick. It's formulated and powered by mandelic acid to stop odor before it starts. You can try their spray deodorant as well. All their products are baking soda free and paraben free, and you can choose from a variety of scents like bourbon leather, clover wood, Mount Fuji, or Pro Sport. Some men mask their BO with scents. Mando men get the job done right. Don't mask it, Mando it. It is available in retailers near you, or head to shopmando.com, because for a limited time, new customers get 20% off site-wide with our exclusive code. Use Illini at shopmando.com for 20% off site-wide plus free shipping. That's shopmando.com. Use code Illini for 20% off site-wide and free shipping. I know it's the beginning of the year and everyone's looking to get healthier, get in shape for those summer months that are ahead. But a big part of a healthy diet has to be good protein. And where I go for the best meats that you can feel great about eating, but also treat yourself a little bit, is Omaha Steaks. Start the year strong and more delicious with premium portion proteins from Omaha Steaks. They sent me some of their burgers, or some of the juiciest I've ever had. Their steak, phenomenal. Cooked up some sirloins with my wife, and she goes, wow, this is really, really tender meat. Or you can go with the versatile chicken and pork and more. Omaha Steaks has unmatched variety of high-quality proteins that everyone loves. And right now, you can taste the difference and get an extra $35 off at omahasteaks.com with promo code Illini at checkout. The Omaha Steaks brand speaks for itself. They've been America's original butcher since 1917. They're a family-owned company with over 100 years of expertise in the meat industry, but I can attest to myself, guys. They sent me some of this meat, mouth-watering burgers, steak, chicken, pork, seafood. They even have dessert. It's easy to prepare, comfort food, but also can match your protein goals in a very healthy diet. So let Omaha Steaks deliver high-quality proteins right to your door. Visit omahasteaks.com. Get an extra $35 off with promo code Illini at checkout. That's omahasteaks.com, promo code Illini. Terms apply. See site for details.
All right, Joey. I think one of the things that is at the top of my mind is like the last two seasons have really been about your offense, right? Like defense in 2024 was pretty decent, nice complimentary defense there. But last year, your offense carried you. Really, the last 3 years, it's been more of an offensive-based program because you found a guy in Barry Lundy Jr. who's fantastic at what you do. Now Bret's job is not just having one great coordinator and one who can do a solid job. It's finding another great coordinator. So a huge task ahead for him. And I'll be honest, Joey, about 2 or 3 months ago, we put together a DC hot board. Like we thought that this was possible. That
Coming back from Seattle, in fact.
Yes, coming back from Seattle, we're like, yes, this might be done. Like this might be on the downslope. But since we put that together, I had the last time I updated was November 23rd. A lot of these guys have gone off the board. And that's what the timing of this is interesting because some of those candidates have come off the board. Jim Leonard just became the Baltimore Ravens defensive coordinator. He was the guy who was atop my list. Jim Knowles went from Penn State defense coordinator to Tennessee defense coordinator. Pat Fitzgerald became a head coach. He was a guy that was on my list as a potential one. Vince Cares, I believe, went to Syracuse. He was Toledo's defense coordinator. Brent Pry stayed at Virginia Tech, just took the DC job instead of the head coaching job. So the candidates that make the most sense to me, just off the top of my head, not based on what I hear, this is all just speculation. Charlie Bowlen. He was the New York Giants interim defense coordinator. He left Illinois after just 1 year as their outside linebackers coach to go back to the NFL, where he has spent the last couple of years. Reportedly has an offer to stay on Harbaugh's staff there as an assistant coach, not a defensive coordinator. So that's a possibility. Another name that makes sense to me is former Cal head coach Justin Wilcox, who's had success as a head coach at Cal, did a pretty good job there, in my opinion. Also was a defense coordinator in Wisconsin, some other stops out west. So he's the name that makes some sense to me. But NFL guys right now would make sense because they're available. Sitting head coaches who are at lower levels would be of interest to me. But what do you think of some of those names? And you got any others, Joey? That you
Charlie Bowlen was a name that I thought was really interesting, but it flies in the face of my, hey, when you go to the NFL, you don't often come back theory.
Yeah.
Right. And I think that is where I really struggle with putting that one fully together in my
brain. And even if you get them, could be a flight risk back to the NFL quickly, right?
Yeah, that's right. And I think if you're Bret Bielema, you would pitch, hey, we don't send our coordinators out on the road a lot like you did when you were a position coach. Obviously, there are recruiting expectations for coordinators, but it's not the insane road schedule that you've seen. So he was one, and I thought Bret Bielema, I remember he brought him up when I think it was a bye week. He said they ran in and got lunch with Charlie out in the New York area. So I'm like, okay, Brian Windhorst.
It's also why I put Fitz on my list, because he had mentioned I once tried to hire Pat Fitzgerald as a defensive coordinator. I go, oh, why would he say that? But obviously Fitz.
That's right. Yeah. So Charlie's one. Justin Wilcox is a very interesting candidate. I cannot remember. Did they have ties? Is there a tie there?
I don't
Bret
think so.
Bret's kind of got a tie with some level with pretty much everybody, but he's a defensive mind that I think is really good. Those two would be the most interesting ones. The Jim Leonard ship has totally and completely sailed. Like, that guy's going to be an NFL head coach before he's coming back to college. So yeah, and that's kind of when we talk about the timing. Obviously, the list that we have, with some just basis of understanding relationships and connections in November, that's a much thinner list than it is on February 1st. So we'll see. I can't imagine. Brett's always a pretty prepared guy. So I would imagine there's a list of 2 or 3. And that's why I also don't think this was he was caught off guard by this either.
No.
Right? I don't think that was the case at all. So those are the 2. The other one, and I don't know, you hate to start putting guys who are in sitting titles because, and this is straight up, you just kind of speculation, but EIU's coach, Chris Wilkerson, if you want to maybe try to go get a head coach, he's got a defensive background. He knows Barry Lunny. If you remember, I believe before that game, is that 2 years ago? Is that right? Yeah, it was Western Illinois this year. I think Barry had talked about how he knows Chris. So that's an interesting, I guess, nugget. Chris is doing a good job at his alma mater at EIU, but defensive guy. Like, you start looking at some of these FCS, you start looking at some of these lower G5 head coaches, and okay, what's your background? And could this place pay you a lot better and give you a chance to really elevate where you are professionally? Kind of like Jeff Halfley, who goes from Boston College to the Packers and he goes to the Dolphins. You can kind of go from EIU and kind of, wherever it is and work your way up. So that'll be interesting to see if that's a path Bret Bielema goes. I don't know. I don't know what's reasonably there on February 1st. There's talent there, right? I'm not trying to say they're going to have to fish and scratch, but it's harder for us to gauge a list of candidates now because a lot of those guys that we thought would make sense have been filled. I still think they'll get a very good candidate because it's a good job. But it's kind of hard. Is it a connection hire, or is it hey, I just have respected you from afar hire?
Yeah. You said Joe Rossi stayed on Fitzgerald's staff. Is that right?
I think that's right. Yeah.
Okay. He was a name I thought of. Another kind of type of candidate I think of is like, all right, which coach is on the hot seat going into this year? Who's his DC? Tony White was a hot name when he was at Nebraska. Remember him? He's at Florida State right now. And Mike Norvell is on an absolutely flaming hot seat going into this year. So that's a name that I think of, even though there's not a lot of connections there. I would give him a call. I feel like this is not very likely, Joey. Wouldn't you give Ryan Walters a call?
No, I was just joking. Yeah.
He's making $2 million a year at Washington, though. He just signed a contract extension. So
yeah. It'd
be expensive.
I can't really get a grip of what that bridge was like after. I don't think it was in perfect condition, the bridge, but I don't know how, I don't know if it was a little bit more was made of it because it ended up being at Purdue and you're going back and forth for guys. I don't know that full answer right now, but I would be interested to call him.
I would call him. I think that highly of him as a defense coordinator. The last thing I want to bring up is just internal candidate does not make sense here. You just promoted an internal candidate after success to promote internally after underachieving the last couple of years doesn't make sense. Like Archie McDaniel at some point I think will be a defensive play caller. Corey Parker at some point I think is going to be a head coach, but neither of those guys with play calling experience at this level. So that wouldn't make any sense to me.
No, and I'm glad you mentioned it. Terrence Jamison has the co-title. So we do have to acknowledge that. I think I see him as he's one of the best defensive line coaches in the country.
He's paid like a coordinator, right?
That's right. Yeah. Yeah, that's right. So
he's got enough on his plate this year to develop whatever they have on the defensive line.
Is there something going on up front on the defensive line?
I hope so. I hope we get some news on that front soon.
Yeah. I'm glad you brought up internal candidates. So we do have to bring up that he does have the title, and I'm sure Bret will give him the opportunity to interview and pitch. I don't know. Maybe that's not in the wheelhouse of what Terrence Jamison wants to do, but yeah, it does feel very much like go outside, find somebody. And we'll see. I would imagine Bret's got a chance to make a splash on this, and I think that that would be an appealing thing to do if you're him.
Yeah, the other the type of candidate. I mentioned kind of NFL candidate, but an NFL position coach who might just want to get defensive play calling experience for a few years. This is like what Jesse Minter did. This is what Mike McDonald did. Kind of these defensive backs coaches who came in, called plays for a couple of years, did incredibly well, and then they went to the NFL. Like that happened with Harbaugh with a few guys. So like that could be an interesting level candidate here. Of you might not know this guy's name, might be a defensive assistant in the NFL, but could become a play caller. That's why Charlie Bowen makes a lot of sense. And obviously the connection there. Charlie, like you mentioned it, recruiting, he's a really good recruiter, but as a defense coordinator, he could just stay in the west suburbs in Illinois and make some quick trips, and that would be it.
Yeah, now that you mentioned the NFL stuff, and my brain is, okay, literally this happened like an hour ago, so we're kind of on the fly a little bit here. Probably should go check some of the old Giants and Patriot staffs when Bret was there for some of those guys and see if there's any connection there, because I think that's a good point in terms of the value of becoming and getting experience calling plays. I mean, it's enormous. It's absolutely an enormous opportunity, and that's a good call. Well, I have to go through and look at some of those defensive stats when he was in New England and New York. That's interesting.
Well, Ryan Easterling actually did this back in the day, right? He had this coaching matrix with him. I don't think you can steal Brian Flores.
I
He's
would
a
think
guy
not.
he coached with.
I wish the Packers
Steve
tried.
Belichick available?
Keep going.
Joe Judge was a special teams coordinator, maybe a special teams candidate there. Yeah, not a lot of guys. Drop Mayo available? Sure. He's available.
That's interesting.
Just a few names to throw out there. But, Joe, as we wrap up this, big offseason for Bret Bielema and his staff. Some big hirings he has to make. He has to replace his defense coordinator. He has to replace his special teams coordinator. Robbie Disher leaving for Ohio State to become the special teams coordinator there. Just some background on that. Basically, Bret Bielema decided he wanted to split up special teams coordinator and tight ends coach. And Robbie wanted to do something else. So he goes and gets the job elsewhere. So I think they're going to hire a tight ends coach and a special teams. We'll see who runs that, whether it's an analyst or whatever it is. Chris Hurd, Ben Miller could make sense with that job. But I think you're going to have outside hires, your defense coordinator, tight ends coach, and running backs coach after Thad Ward left. So a lot of work to do on this staff, and kind of shows, one, Bret Bielema wants to do better than what they did on special teams and defense, which after last season, that's understandable.
Yeah, I agree. It felt like, Thad Ward left, and then it's like, really? There's not more changing there. Not like I thought that it was some dire strait. Defensively, it does feel like a new voice was very much needed. But it's just the way it goes. There's always staff change everywhere. And it's kind of like the one person you didn't really expect to leave Thad Ward. Not the one, but he wasn't on our radar, right? And it's like, okay, man, it's middle of January. Aaron Henry's still at Illinois. It's late January. Aaron Henry's still at Illinois. I guess Aaron Henry's coming back to Illinois. And then this ultimately ends up happening here. So yeah, it's a big offseason. It's a chance to, I think, that's not a reset. That's not the word I want to use, but you have so much roster turnover, and now you have a chance to bring in some new, not a chance, you will be bringing in new voices, key positions, special teams coordinator, defensive coordinator, tight ends coach, running backs coach. There's going to be opportunity out there to just kind of a new voices, new faces, new thoughts, new ideas, new talent on the field. And it's a big offseason for Bret Bielema in terms of kind of this program and keeping it where it is. And I know that's obviously a big priority for them, is you don't take a step back just because you lost a big senior class.
Yeah, the other thing I want to mention is, like, Bret Bielema is very involved in special teams. Whether that's a good thing, if fans want to look at after some issues there this year, but he's very involved there. I think Ben Miller, Chris Hurd would make a lot of sense if they want to promote from within. Tight ends, they got to recruit better, Joey. I don't put like everything about J.C. Anderson and Max Suter on Robbie. Like, this is the reason they didn't get him. But you'd like a tight ends coach to be the reason you do get, some of these top targets at tight end, and they just haven't landed them the last 3 years. So whoever that tight ends coach, I think you got to find somebody who can up the talent in that room. Even though, kudos to Robbie, like Tip Ryman, Tanner Arkin, really good players. Like Cole Rusk wasn't completely well-rounded as a player, but he has had some production this year. So you got to up the talent in that room, because that's just a position I thought would be better under Bret Bielema, given his history with Hunter Henry, Jeremy Sprinkle at Arkansas, all the guys at Wisconsin, Travis Beckham, some other draft picks. it's a surprise to me that position isn't more of a strength for Illinois, even though Tanner Arkin and Tip Ryman are phenomenal stories, team captains, tough, smart, dependable. You want to be more dynamic at that position.
Yeah, I agree with all that. I think that's a big opportunity to bring in another good recruiter to your staff and to build more there and win some of those, more high profile battles. I thought Illinois, to your point, just to put a bow on it, I thought they did a really good job of getting in the fights with J.C. Anderson, with Max Suter. They shouldn't win them. And, you'd like to get over that hump here. And that's a position that does need a little bit more talent long-term in it. And it's a hard position to recruit because all the players who can block and can catch are 5-stars going to really, really big programs. And so you have to project development a lot at the tight end position, whether it's, hey, this guy's physical, we can teach him to catch, or he can catch and we can bulk him up and teach him to be a little more physical. So, yeah, I'm curious if that's something they could if they're going to try to bump up that recruiting in that tight end room. And I think it's a really great opportunity to do so.
Before we get out here, I do think it says something that Robbie Disher and Aaron Henry look for other jobs, and they got Notre Dame and Ohio State. Like that says something about the program, right? Like it says something about these guys.
Too. Robbie Disher's a well-respected special teams coordinator. I know that I understand that there were lows that happened this season and during his tenure, and I understand that punting was a struggle one year, and that he is a well-respected special teams coordinator. And it's not a surprise to me that he got a good job. People like him. He had a lot of success as a great hire for Illinois when they brought him in here, and it's just not a lot of consistency at times there. And Aaron Henry, you're selling that defensive backs development pitch on the recruiting trail. That probably also plays pretty well in a coach's office when you're interviewing for a new job and say, this is what I've done with DBs. I'm telling you, and then I'm going to go and tell all these other guys that we're trying to recruit too.
The other thing is, Bret Bielema's got a good sell here, man. Like he's developed coaches to help their careers. A lot of money. There's a lot of money at Illinois to be spent. Defense coordinator, you can make more than $1 million. Be interesting to see if they up that to go get a guy he really, really wants, Joey. Josh Whitman's given him the resources to do it. They've sold more tickets, and Bret Bielema should have the resources to go out and hire some people. So it's going to be really interesting to see who we can pull in here, because whether it's a G5 coach that becomes the running backs coach or tight ends coach, like what an opportunity it is for them. And, if it's a sitting NFL assistant or a defense coordinator at a G5 program or another Power 4 program, like I think this is an enticing job. So it'll be really fascinating to see where Bret Bielema goes, and we'll dig on this, Joey. But Bret Bielema runs pretty quiet searches, and let's sit back, react, and see what he's able to bring in here.
Yeah, month of February just got interesting with football in the middle of a Big Ten championship race on basketball, huh? It's good. It's good stuff. It's good times, and man, it's gonna be an interesting month in terms of how he reshaped some pretty key positions on this coaching staff.
Yeah. All right. Well, we appreciate you guys joining us live. We tried to piece this together. It went pretty well. We stayed on the air. We got some thoughts out there, but we're heading over to Lincoln, or to Pinnacle Bank Arena, just a couple blocks away from here, from the Graduate Hotel to go cover a top 10 game. We'll be on that here in a few minutes. So we appreciate you guys listening to the Illini Inquirer podcast. Give us a like if you're watching us on the YouTube channel. Subscribe, hit the notifications bell. And if you're listening on the podcast, give us a follow, rating, review wherever you get your podcasts. Go ahead, Joe.
Happy birthday, man.
Oh, thank you.
It
made me work a little more than I wanted to on my birthday.
A little bit of news on your birthday.
Yeah, we got to enjoy the Haymarket last night. Had a birthday beer after midnight. Had a good time.
Corona, your favorite?
Really good time. I ordered Kona. She gave me Corona. Didn't have the heart to tell her. But we enjoyed ourselves. So appreciate it, everyone. We'll see you at the basketball game. Everybody have a great day. Take care of each other. We'll talk to you next time on the Illini Inquirer podcast.
Bye, everybody.